Good afternoon. Are y'all enjoying yourselves? Make some noise if you're enjoying yourselves. I'm enjoying myself. I'm enjoying you all. I got a chance to meet a lot of you all today. I'm very excited about that. We have a really cool couple of initiatives that I want to share with you before we continue going. We have one that's called Discover BMI. And so basically what that initiative is that if anybody who's in your neighborhood or who goes to a high school or a part of a CBO who wants to come visit one of the 30 BMI projects, spend some time with them, get some food, get some swag items, and learn about what BMI, being a BMI student or a CUNY student is like, you can actually sign up on our website and you can actually just request to visit a campus and we will host you for 2 hours. So Discover BMI, coming towards you and near you soon. We're going to send a follow-up email to everyone today who's part of the conference with all this information in it as well. So don't worry about it if you don't remember now. And number two, we have another initiative where basically we have created now a shortcut, which is like an app on your phone where people can sign up for BMI on the spot. So all of our BMI directors have received instructions on how to do that. They all can download this app. And basically, if you want to join a BMI project near a campus near you, you can sign up on this app. It's like 5 quick questions, and we will connect you to those services that are nearest you. So if you're near City College or Lehman or BCC or Bronx or Brooklyn, we will link you up to that BMI project near you. So a couple cool things that are happening there we want you to know about. I want to also just take a second to acknowledge our interpreters who are killing it today. Yeah, when you clap for them, you're supposed to clap like this, right? Yeah. So thank you, Howard Hines Jr. and Patrice Harrington for helping us with interpreting services and helping some of our students who have that need. We realize that you're also representing not only CUNY, but also the members of the National Alliance of Black Interpreters. And so we're grateful for you all being here representing the New York City chapter. Thank you. Absolutely. And so we're very excited. Talib is in the building. We're about to hear from him. And we're really excited. Low-key, I tried to get him to play a song with me. I was like, yo, but I can spit too, son. I was like, yo, I got bars. And he was like, I don't do that. I don't do that with amateurs. I was like, cool, all good. So yeah, we're going to have a really great time with him. But one of the biggest fans, what do they call those people, the super fans? Stands, yeah. So one of the biggest stands for Talib is actually one of our current CUNY BMI directors. And he is the BMI director for the Urban Male Leadership Academy here at Borough Manhattan Community College. Oops. But it's okay, though, because I got bars, and I was about to spit something, but y'all stopped me. And what was going to happen, I was going to say Bronx, not Brooklyn, Manhattan. Okay, no, I'm going to stop. All right, but let me finish next time. So what we're going to do is have one of our amazing BMI directors from Borough Manhattan Community College. This guy is like an MVP. Come on up, man. He's MVP. He's smart. He's genius. He's about to be a doctor. He's in a doctoral program right now. He's got a beautiful wife, 2 beautiful kids, and he is every idea he has turns to gold. He has over 300 BMI students here at BMCC. It's crazy. And so a lot of what we do overall models after a lot of what this guy does. So I consider you a friend, a mentor, an advisor. You got what it takes. So Mr. Ashton Holmes, let's welcome him.
Good afternoon. Oh, we can definitely do better than that. This is BMCC. Let's make some noise. Good afternoon. Oh, it's certainly a pleasure to be here to host the 14th Annual. 14th Annual. Can we clap it up just for that? 14 years of acknowledgement. of Black excellence, of Latino excellence. This is a really beautiful thing to be a part of. And I still sometimes can't believe that I have this job. It's just a dream job. I actually get paid to do this. I get paid to help people graduate and move forward with their lives. And it's an outstanding honor for me to be here each and every day to support the students. Is my UMLA family in the building? Okay, can we, all right. Just making sure. And let's give it up for Mr. Shaun Best. I really enjoy the direction that he's taken BMI, and he is going to be wonderful for our program going forward. And I also wanted to acknowledge some of what I call the OGs. That stands for Original Gentlemen, by the way. Original Gentlemen. Let's acknowledge Elliot Dawes, who was the founding director of the CUNY Black Male Initiative. And let's also acknowledge his predecessor, Dr. Jermaine Wright. So here at UMLA, we do a lot to support students. We provide mentorship. We provide one-on-one tutoring for students. We connect them to scholarship and job opportunities and to four-year colleges and careers. But the work we do at UMLA just pales in comparison to the overall efforts of the CUNY BMI. So one more time, let's give it up for all the CUNY BMI projects, the directors, the staff, but most importantly, the students who are here to move forward with their lives. And now I have the impossible task of introducing somebody that needs no introduction, right? This man, and I really say this honestly, this man changed my life. He doesn't even know it. But when I first listened to the Black Star album, that album just connected me and resonated with me in a way that no album did before. It was just the perfect mix of everything. It was part gritty, it was part street, it was conscious, it was social justice, it was Black nationalism, it was activism, it was all those things wrapped up in this perfect package. And it changed my life forever. I remember going home after I listened to it, and I would hit up the dictionary and look up words that I didn't know what they meant. And just that album just sparked something in me to make me become who I am today. And it's a big part of me today, seriously. I'm a big, huge fan of hip hop, and that is a top 5 album. I don't care who you got up against that. That is the top 5 record. And so what I want everybody to do is just join me in doing this. So we're going to introduce the man, the lyrical swordsmith, one of the best to ever do it in this hip hop thing. And we're going to do it like this. Those who know the definition song, we're going to make a little play on it. So if you don't know, it goes 1, 2, 3. BMCC. CUNY. NYC. Put your hands together. Let's get out of our seat. Make some noise for Mr. Talib Kweli.
Thank you. Everybody can hear me loud and clear? Thank you, Ashton. That was beautiful. I appreciate it. Point of contention, a stan for anyone who is a fan of hip-hop and listens to Eminem is not what I would call you. I would call you a fan because in the song Stan tied up his pregnant girlfriend and drove into the river. Because he was obsessed with Eminem, and I didn't get that vibe from you. You know what I'm saying? I got more of a fan vibe. Thank you for having me here. You all look wonderful and powerful and beautiful and excellent. And this is a wonderful program, and I'm honored to be speaking in front of you. And I'm going to be reading some stuff and some notes that I took, notes that I have from things that I've been writing over the years, and I'm going to share them with you, things that I feel like are relevant to what you have been talking about. And, I want to start with a quote from the great Angela Davis, who said that the importance of doing activist work is precisely because it allows you to give back and to consider yourself not as a single individual who may have achieved whatever, but to be as a part of an ongoing historical movement. Every living person, everyone in this audience, is privileged in some way, for the alive have privilege over the dead. People who live in what are callously referred to as first world countries are privileged to have access to resources that people in poorer nations ravaged by imperialism do not have. Because we live in a patriarchal society, every man has male privilege that no women enjoy. Because we live in a society that values the lives of white people over the lives of people of color, every white person is privileged to be among a group that is given the benefit of the doubt more often than other groups. As a straight American male, I was born into at least 3 oppressor groups. As an artist that has achieved a little bit of fame, I have earned a class and celebrity privilege that most people will never experience. That makes me a member of additional oppressor groups. As a compassionate person, it's important that I recognize all of my privileges, earned and inherited. When I don't, I participate in oppression either deliberately or by default. Being a member of an oppressor group doesn't automatically make you a jerk. You only become that jerk when you refuse to acknowledge how you benefit from being a member of the oppressor group you're a part of. One of the most pervasive privileges to have is white privilege. As a person of color, I know this because I know exactly what it feels like to not have it. Race is a social construct with no basis in biology, but its implications have very real consequences. Race as a concept was invented by Europeans who sought to justify kidnapping, torturing, enslavement of generations of African slaves during the Atlantic slave trade. One could say race was invented so that people could be racist. Tribalism, nationalism, other isms that divided people existed long before racism did. But because racism was invented for profit, none of these other isms have been nearly as successful as dividing human beings. At my core, I'm a connector, I'm an observer, a documentarian, to quote Yassine Bey. I am proud to contribute to the vast canon of Black cultural arts, and I understand the importance of connecting the music to the community, and I use my platform to voice the struggle, but I am hardly the first to do so. One of the greatest examples of an artist who remains connected to the struggle is Harry Belafonte. As a young calypso singer in the 1950s, Harry Belafonte scored the first million-selling platinum single with Day-O, the Banana Boat song. It was a very impressive feat for a person of color in those times. The ability to write and sing just one of Harry Belafonte's many talents. Along with putting out hit records, he danced at Broadway shows. He starred in many movies. At even one point, he worked with my grandmother and the namesake of my record label, Javoti Green. Harry Belafonte wasted no time leveraging his influence for advancements in the civil rights struggle. He's one of the biggest stars on the planet, but he was also one of the first celebrities to show up in places like Selma to march with the people when they demanded freedom and equality. Famous for chartering a plane from Los Angeles to bring Hollywood stars to Dr. Martin Luther King March in Washington, D.C. in 1963, and always on the right side of history, Harry Belafonte went beyond the photo ops to align himself with and create organizations dedicated to changing oppressive policy. I went to sit with Mr. B, that's what we call him when you get to know him, Mr. B. I went to sit with Mr. B when I was recording Prisoner Conscious in 2012. I decided that I could not give the album that title without being more consciously involved in spreading information about actual political prisoners and making sure I connected with grassroots activists and organizations when I traveled the country performing. I took advantage of an opportunity in that same year to visit one of my biggest inspirations as a writer, famed political prisoner Mumia Abu-Jamal. Mumia is a journalist who was on death row for 30 years, most of them spent in solitary confinement. Even though his lawyer successfully had his death sentence vacated, Mumia Abu-Jamal remains in jail for life, charged with the murder of a police officer despite mountains of evidence that suggest otherwise. It's clear to any rational, compassionate person who reviews Mumia's case that he was framed for this murder due to his affiliation with the Black Panthers and MOVE, organizations that routinely stood up to racist policing in Philadelphia back in the 1970s. When I worked at Nkiru Books, we sold many books about Mumia and by Mumia, but his most popular was Live from Death Row. The prison industrial complex is white supremacy's most pervasive tentacle, and Mumia Abu-Jamal remains a living, breathing symbol of resistance to it. Working with prisoners is the most rewarding activist work I've ever done. The founders of Black Lives Matter started out working in prisons, So it made sense to me that when their movement became something that everyone wanted to get a piece of, that on a personal level, the fact that this movement and their focus on a problem that disproportionately affects young black men was led by black women who self-describe as queer taught me an amazing lesson in intersectionality. Contrary to the lies perpetuated by the enemies of compassionate people everywhere, Black Lives Matter is not an organization funded by billionaires like George Soros. Black Lives Matter is an organization that uses peaceful tools like marches and demonstrations to combat a very violent police state. People of color are forced to live under the constant threat of violence from law officers who swore to uphold the law. These people whose salaries we pay with our tax dollars. The violence is perpetuated on us, not by us. The fact that an unarmed group of black activists that clearly uses peaceful means to combat violence is constantly accused of creating or condoning violence speaks volumes. It's an ugly commentary on the state of our affairs. Talking heads in the mainstream media go as far as to refer to Black Lives Matter activists as terrorists, just like they did to Martin Luther King when he dared to use peaceful means to suggest that Black lives mattered back in the 1960s. While armed, anti-government, white supremacist actions actually falling under the legal definition of terrorism are treated with kid gloves by the feds, we have police encouraging motorists to run down Black Lives Matter protesters on Facebook. Racist, phony progressives, and those whose skin and or financial status allows them to benefit from a system of oppression try to constantly misappropriate and defang the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. They prop up his I Have a Dream speech as proof of a utopia that will never be until they are honest about the way racism is ingrained in our psyches and our institutions. They use his quotes out of context. They conveniently ignore his revolutionary anti-capitalist stance. They whitewash him until he's safe enough for a McDonald's commercial, and they pretend that he championed colorblindness over diversity. It is the duty of freedom-loving, compassionate people to reclaim the legacy of people like Dr. Martin Luther King and to remind the world that his humanity was real and put into practice. The year before Dr. King was assassinated in cold blood by a white supremacist, he revisited the premise of his I Have a Dream speech. When in an interview given to NBC, he said, "A dream that I had that day has turned into a nightmare. I've gone through a lot of soul searching and I had a lot of antagonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, as some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a little solid realism." In a speech called The Other America, delivered at Grosse Pointe High School in 1968, Dr. King explained why he never condemned riots. When he said, "It's not enough for me to stand before you tonight and condemn riots. It would be morally irresponsible for me to do that without, at the same time, condemning the contingent, intolerable conditions that exist in our society. These conditions are things that cause individuals to feel that they have no other alternative than to engage in violent rebellion to get attention. And I must say tonight that a riot is the language of the unheard." Addressing the woes of capitalism in a letter to his wife Coretta, written in 1952, Dr. King writes, "I imagine you already know that I am much more socialistic in my economic theory than capitalistic. Capitalism started out with a noble and high motive, but like most human systems, it fell victim to the very thing it was revolting against. So today, capitalism has outlived its usefulness." He said that in 1952. Anyone who has read Dr. King's letter from a Birmingham jail would not recognize the Dr. King that corporate media tries to sell to us. In this letter, written while Dr. King was in jail for protesting business during the holiday season, which is exactly what ahistorical idiots like to tell people that Dr. King would not do, Dr. King writes, "I have almost reached the regrettable conclusion that the Negro's great stumbling block in his stride towards freedom is not the White Citizens Council or the KKK, but moderate white people who are more devoted to order than to justice, who prefer a negative peace, which is the absence of tension, to a positive peace, which is the presence of justice, who constantly say, 'I agree with you in the goals that you seek. I cannot agree with you in the methods of direct action,' who paternalistically believe that he can set a timetable for another man's freedom, who lives by a mythical concept of time, and who constantly advises the Negro to wait for a more convenient season." In the same letter, Dr. King addresses why he chose to protest the Birmingham Business District by writing, we decided to schedule our direct action program for the Easter season, realizing that except for Christmas, this is the main shopping period of the year. Knowing that a strong economic withdrawal program would be the product of direct action, we felt that this would be the best time to bring pressure to bear on the merchants for needed change. By paying attention to Dr. King's own words and the body of his work, we can clearly see that the activism done by Black Lives Matter was the same exact strategy and rhetoric for freedom that Dr. King used. He would not be condemning Black Lives Matter. He would be right there with them at the mall protesting on Christmas. It was in this spirit that I set up the crowd-funded bail and jail relief fund for Ferguson protesters. The money poured in for 2 months, and by the time we shut down the fundraising page, we had exceeded our initial goal of by $105,000. We raised $115,000 for the protesters in Ferguson. Now, as a music executive, I had learned how to handle six-figure budgets. But being responsible for $115,000 worth of charity donations was very scary for me. Without taking the time to figure out the best way to get the money to activists on the ground, it would be far too easy to muck this money up and to have to explain where it went to angry donors. The first thing I did was put together a committee of like-minded activists and cultural influencers that would help me make sound decisions when it came time to handing the money out. The initial group I put together consisted of Rosa Clemente, Autumn Marie Griffin, Phil Agnew, and Aisha Alexander from Dream Defenders, Patrice Colores from Black Lives Matter, Hiram Rivera from the Philadelphia Student Union, Liz Mann, activist musician Miles Soleil from the band Outer National, actor Orlando Jones, St. Louis-based activist and organizer Reverend Sekou, Ferguson activist organizer Diamond Latchison, and Ferguson activist organizer Kayla Reed from Organization for Black Struggle. We call ourselves the Action Support Committee, and we communicated our ideas through a series of email conversations. Beyond providing bail support for jailed protesters, Action Support Committee spent the year identifying and supporting direct actions, civil disobedience, and programs that were created in the aftermath of the Ferguson uprising. We donated money to groups like MORE, Missouri Organization for Reform and Empowerment, Hands Up United, and more. The Action Support Committee also threw 2 concerts in St. Louis on the 1-year anniversary weekend of Mike Brown's death. That Saturday, we put on a rock-based concert which featured performances from Jessica Care Moore, Outer National, and Tom Morello of Rage Against the Machine. That Sunday, I performed at our hip-hop event, which also included performances by Immortal Technique, Pharoah Monch, Bun B, Tef Poe, Jasiri X, Common, and many more. The Action Support Committee, or ASC, was started to support the Ferguson protesters specifically. However, the people of Ferguson showed communities all over the country that they did not have to sit idly by while police were slaughtering us in the streets. From the protests surrounding the deaths of 19-year-old Tony Robinson in Madison, Wisconsin, 25-year-old Freddie Gray in Baltimore, Maryland, 24-year-old Jamal Clark in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and all unarmed, all young people of color, all killed by the police, we could see that the support we set out to provide was needed in all of our cities, not just Ferguson. The way that Black life is undervalued is not news to communities of color, but technology has allowed us to film it in real time on our cell phones and share what we filmed on social media and social networks. In the same way that we see violently fascist images on the nightly news, the same way that seeing violently fascist images on the nightly news of the Vietnam War and the struggle for civil rights sparked the revolution in the 1960s, the unfiltered stream of independently documented police abuse that made its way into hashtags and retweets was galvanizing millennials. I believe that hip-hop is a vehicle for the liberation of my people. I believe that the seed of Black Lives Matter is there in Martin Luther King's writings and work, and for my generation, that is there in the rise of hip-hop. Before this generation embraced the struggle, I thought the era of protest was over, an archaic tool that we all benefited from but failed to see the importance of in today's times. But this younger generation proved me wrong. It was their moment, and they were seizing it. Speaking of social media, there are many people who are highly critical of my Twitter engagement. They say I spend too much time on Twitter. They say they are concerned about how dealing with so much of the toxicity online affects my spirit. They say I will never be able to educate a bigot, and that by responding to them, I share my platform with them. To that, I say I am not trying to educate a bigot or save a bigot's soul. I am trying to confront, expose, and destroy bigots. I don't speak to them. I speak through them to us. To the person who quotes Jay-Z to me and says, a wise man says don't argue with fools, because from a distance you can't tell who is who. I say that if you're too far away to see who the fool is, come closer. Invest time in gaining context for what you are speaking on. Fools multiply while wise men remain silent. Nelson Mandela said that, and I live by it. As someone who came of age during hip-hop's black cultural renaissance in the late 1980s, I definitely live by it. Bigotry thrives in darkness. So when you refuse to shed light on it, you are enabling it. I don't expect everyone to spend the time or energy that I spend engaging with bigots online. But what I do expect is that for those who claim to be anti-bigotry to not stand in my way while I combat it. I understand fully that the negativity that bigots spew can be triggering, and that not everyone has the time, information, or resources to challenge it in the way that I do. I am uniquely built for this, most are not. In my view, it's easy and it's lazy to dismiss every bigoted interaction with a nameless, faceless account online as just trolling. A lot of it is just trolling, but far too much of it is well organized, well planned, insidious attempts at attacking our basic freedoms and our very rights to be human beings. If you know what Cambridge Analytica is, then you know they've been successful. If you know who Steve Bannon is, then you know that taking this fight to social media was a huge part of his plan. Donald Trump retweeted Nazis 75 times on the campaign trail. We were told to ignore this. We were told they're just trolls. We were told that Donald Trump has no shot at winning anyway. A year later, those same Nazi trolls got online and they organized a march in Charlottesville to protest the removal of Confederate statues. Nazis showed up. It wasn't just online anymore. The KKK showed up to help out. The Nazis showed up to defend them. When people showed up to protest their racist hatred, these very fine people, as President Donald Trump described them, beat these people up and they shot at them. Then one of them ran Heather Heyer over in his car as he plowed through a group of anti-Confederate protesters. He murdered her in broad daylight. He was dressed in the tan, khaki, white golf shirt outfit preferred by Donald Trump when he is golfing. I was taught, and my parents are here, and they taught me this, I was taught that being pro-black meant combating white supremacy anytime it showed up, in any space or any context. So when I see some Twitter trolls start pushing certain right-wing agendas and talking points, I pay attention. I don't pay attention so much when someone says you can't rap or I don't like your clothes. That stuff's subjective. But when some account starts whining about socialism and communism and how he hates diversity and globalism and how white genocide is happening, these are all tells. The person who does this has been immersed in white supremacist propaganda and taught to hate everything that the Nazi hates. Surely we should all choose our battles wisely. But in a digital age where many people spend a majority of their free time online, I think that choosing to battle bigotry in digital spaces is a wise decision. With that said, the conversations I facilitate on Twitter around activism and social justice are meaningless if they remain solely on Twitter. A movement is nothing without boots on the ground and flesh in the streets. So if social networking or online interaction, it's not really your jam, that's fine by me. Just don't come to my page telling me how to behave. It's a common misconception that I cannot take criticism. The opposite is true. I love criticism. It's criticism that makes me better. In fact, critics have made me so good that I'm often able to critique the criticisms against me better than they're able to critique me. I'm not perfect, I'm far from perfect, but I'm damn good at what I do. I don't speak on things I don't know about. I lay everything I'm about out on the table in a very transparent way. This attitude allows me to fruitfully engage with anyone on any level. This is how you stop weapons that are formed against you from prospering. When people criticize activists, they better be able to show their activist work. I've never driven in NASCAR. I wouldn't show up to the Indy 500 and tell a race car driver how he could win the race. How would I know? I wouldn't. So before you go online or any space to tell an activist to ignore injustice, before you tell someone who is more successful than you are how to live their life, examine your own life. Then go work on that instead. You don't have to like me, we don't have to like each other. If you question me, I'm going to question you. Having this platform in my hand at all times is a privilege. I plan on using every platform available to me to highlight what the underprivileged go through, and I will never stop doing that. My track record is ironclad on these beats, it's ironclad in these streets, so why would it be any different in these tweets? Thank you, y'all.
Thank you. Good question and answer, okay?
Yeah, let's do it.
Awesome. Thank you, man. All right, so we have some of our BMI directors that are going to be in the aisles, and we're going to take the first 6 questions from the audience, and he's going to stay with us for a little bit longer. Or longer? Okay, cool. He's going to stay here till 6 o'clock. So,
I don't know about that.
Oh, okay, never mind. All right, so what we'll do is this. Also, we wanted to say thank you formally for being here, taking time out, and you are so versatile that you can do this, and probably got a show later on or whatever.
I do. Tonight at Bar 13, which is near here, right? That's on 13th and University, I think. Tony Touch is a hip-hop legend. He has a party called Toka Tuesdays at Bar 13 every Tuesday. Tonight is the 11th year anniversary of that party, and I will be DJing at that party on a late night if you could stay up, so come through to that. But yeah, questions?
Word. Done. So 2 things. Number 1, y'all heard Shaun King this morning talk about how that castle law was in place for the police officer that went and shot the guy. Did y'all see that she just got convicted? Did anybody see that? That's crazy. That just happened like an hour ago. So that was amazing. So good, thank God for justice. And secondly, I just want to Ashley, if you can come join me on stage real quick. I just want to quickly present you, Talib, with this award. We just want to say thank you for making time. Look, it looks it's not platinum, but it's just like regular crystal. All right, cool. And so
Crystal is very popular right now.
Yeah, exactly. So let me just read it real quick for you. So it just says, Talib Kweli, entrepreneur and world-renowned hip-hop artist, in appreciation for your afternoon keynote lecture at the 14th Annual CUNY BMI conference titled Restorative Justice Education, We Are All Justice Involved, at the Borough of Manhattan Community College, October 1st. So let's give it up for him, all right?
Thank y'all so much.
Take some pictures real quick in front of there.
Why did we say, oh, sorry.
All right, so the first 3 people in each aisle will get questions. There's no one in that aisle. There's 4 people over here. So I'm just letting you know. Cool, all you.
All right, who's first?
Hi, my name is Jose Lopez. I'm from the Future Now program at Bronx Community College.
Peace. Bronx in the house.
I know you're from the streets of Brooklyn, and I just want to ask what led you to become an activist, and what just made you continue to strive for that goal each year and every day?
Well, I gotta say, it's my parents are here. Brenda Green, Dr. Brenda Green, Dr. Perry Green in the front. You know, I was raised in their household. You know, the sociology and humanities professors, and you know that makes hip hop, right? I grew up in New York City. You know, my parents met in college at New York University, right, in the 1960s, and it was very in vogue and popular to be an activist back then. But some people continued with it, and by the time I was born, my parents were still into activism a little bit. In the 1980s, anti-apartheid in South Africa was a big thing for activists, the global activist community. And my parents, in addition to participating in local politics, working for and with local politicians, my parents were very activists, at least on the, I don't really know what they did when I wasn't around, because I was a kid. But at least in the house, there was a lot of literature that would lead me to believe they were involved in anti-apartheid activism, right? And so I had a perfect storm of being born in 1975 and coming of age when hip-hop was having a very sort of activist, black nationalist, black cultural nationalist movement. You know, we're talking about Public Enemy, and first of all, it was like Eric B. and Rakim and Big Daddy Kane, and then was 5%ers, and then you had Public Enemy and X-Clan and Poor Righteous Teachers, and these groups was very popular. So when that type of hip-hop was very popular, it was aligning with, I was coming into puberty, that's what the girls like, and it was aligning with things I was learning in my house. So it was just a perfect storm. I was very blessed for conscious hip-hop to be popular at a time when I was coming of age with the foundation I had in my home.
Peace, peace. Honor and a privilege to sit before you, hear your words, and ask you this question. My name is Stephen Flo Pacheco. You could call me Flo if you're comfortable.
Okay.
My question, I'm the chair of this, what started as a participatory grant-making committee, is now a foundation called the Canary Impact Fund. And what it is it's a board of all formerly incarcerated leaders. And we're being very radical in our approach to transforming the realm of philanthropy. So my question to you, because of all the great work you did out in Ferguson, but obviously across the globe, what is your interest in being a part of an initiative like that? Because it's very important about who you get your resources and support from, so that your cause can stay closest to the people who are most impacted. And we're serious about that, but we got big money from big people. We need some big money from our people. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think, you know, that was the whole thing with the Ferguson thing. When I went to Ferguson, I met these two brothers, Tef Poe, who's a rapper and an activist, and Tory Russell. And I struck up a relationship with them. And when they came to New York, they visited me like a month after it started. And I said, well, man, I felt such a connection to them that I was like, what do y'all need? How can I help? Because I'm a working class artist. I'm not a rich man. I live in a community just like everybody else. I'm blessed to be able to use my fame to make money, but it doesn't bring in a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like the marketplace is interesting to me, that the marketplace, I get paid a lot more for talking to y'all or for doing podcasts than I get for making a rap song. You know, because the marketplace has decided that the creative art is worthless. My conversation's worth a lot, which is interesting because I thought everybody knew how to have a damn conversation, but turns out it's a pretty marketable skill, you know? But the whole point of what they said to me was, we have all these big organizations coming in, the people who are associated with the George Soroses of the world, even the ACLU and organizations that are normally very, very like proactive and progressive, very woke, you know, Amnesty, organizations that have good track records and good names, but the money does not get to the people on the ground. And so that's why I did what I did. I didn't expect to raise $100,000. My goal was $10,000. And so when I raised that money, they tried to Wyclef me immediately. Like immediately, you know? And I did the due diligence of making sure that I had all my ducks in a row and had all my receipts, and I put together a committee and worked with the people. I went to people who would have been the equivalent of you, or what you saying that you are in that community. I went to those people. You know, I'm glad I did that. The reason I'm able to still talk about it, and the reason why it didn't go astray, and look, I have a great relationship with Shaun King. I have a great relationship with D-Ray, and I respect what both of them brothers have done, or at least tried to do. I hate the fact that they air their business out in the way that they do. But what it shows me is that this type of work is hard. This type of work is hard. When you're asking people for money and when you're raising money and when you do, this is why people don't do it. Because then you gotta wear it on your shoulders like a cape everywhere you go. And if you're not ready for that level of commitment, then you don't step into it. So my job is to take my platform and give a voice to the people who are actually doing the work. Before I did that work, before I did that Ferguson thing, people called me a conscious rapper, activist rapper. And I was cute. But beyond going to some rallies, performing at some fundraisers, I hadn't really done any activist work. It's very easy for me as an artist to kick activist bars and to go to a rally or perform at a fundraiser, but not actually do the work. The work I did in Ferguson was the first time that without being asked or prompted, that I started some activism work. And it was daunting, but it showed me that I had to give a voice to Patrice and to Rosa and to Phil and to the other people I hadn't met before. So if you're real about what you say, I'm very easy to reach. You can give me your card, or we can exchange information, and I'll check it out. If the work is there, that'd be something that I'd be happy to give a voice to, and it would be very easy for me to do.
Greetings, Talib Kweli. My name's Shaun King.
Peace.
I'm coming from City College, Harlem. I'm a native New Yorker from the Lower East Side.
Okay. Luisa.
Yep. My question is, for the boots on the ground, what advice do you give to help coordinate? Because the great movements came from the college campuses, like the anti-apartheid movement.
Well, shit, I ain't in college no more, ain't you?
I am, but
You're supposed to be
outside
telling me.
perspectives, outside perspectives help us gain more insight.
No, I mean, I'm glad you asked it. When I went to see Harry Belafonte, and I took some parts out of that for time, but I went to see him because he's the OG. He the elder. When I went to see him, he was 83 years old. And I was like, yo, who do I go to? He was like, why are you asking me? He was like, I'm 83 years old. Now, I'm not 83 years old, but what Mr. Belafonte told me was, he said there's some interesting things going on in Tallahassee with the Dream Defenders. Go see the Dream Defenders, go see Philip Agnew. And when I went to see them, and then when I went to Ferguson a year later, the people I met in Tallahassee were in Ferguson. But I say that to say Phil and them were from FAMU. It was students at FAMU who started that. You're right, it's always been the college students who have started it. So my job is to not tell you, your job is to tell me who it is. Like on the activist piece, I'm 44 years old. I'm gonna be 45 in 2 days, right? Thank you. But me at 45 years old, I'm not supposed to be taking the leadership in the on-the-ground stuff. You're supposed to be telling me what that is. I'm supposed to be using this platform, my podcast, this podium. Whenever I go on stages around the world, I'm supposed to be like, I met this brother at City College that told me whoop-de-whoop. You know what I'm saying? And then I'm supposed to follow your lead. And trust me, when you take that lead, I will be there to follow you. Trust me. I'll be there to follow you. And you know what? This shit that I got to do, that I got to take the lead on, and I hope that you follow me as well.
Hello. Oh, I'm mad nervous right now. I ain't gonna hold you.
Oh, it's all good, brother. I'm here.
Nah, I got 2 questions. The first one, can I have your autograph for me?
Sure.
Now the second one, I do spoken word. My name is Joseph Robertson. I'm from Queensboro, the Behind Men Project for me. And from Southside Jamaica, Queens. But like, I'm a poet, and Southside. But I feel like for me, it's like I'm at a point in my life where it's like I have the voice. It's just now where. So my question to you is like, what are ways to, as a creative, as an artist, to build a platform to where I can use content in a way where people will be able to gravitate toward it, or I can increase a fan base, or places where I can reach people, or help actually do things within my community more so than just like you said. Like I feel like I could write a fire piece, a good poem, I could spit out open mic or a showcase, but it's like it's more than me just saying these words. What other initiatives am I taking behind closed doors that I'm carrying every day? What are some things that you would suggest to do?
Well, in the same spirit of the answer that I gave the young brother over here, I come from a very, very different time and space when it comes to monetizing and getting your art out there. When I first started, there was no internet. You had to get up and get on the train and go places and be in communities. And it was a community, particularly a community in Washington Square Park, of MCs that I used to be around that used to push me. And that was my competition. I would imagine that those communities exist in online spaces now. I work with an artist on my label on Javoti Media called Nico Is, and he's from Brazil, and he's a very good rapper, but he told me he started out battling in forums online, which I thought was strange. That was the weirdest thing ever. I said, how do you battle? You have time to sit there and think about what you want to type? Oh, I would have killed that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I had to battle, like, we had to think of it on the spot in your face. I'm constantly exploring new ways to get my art out there. at a time when, like I said, people don't value art. But here's the flip side of it. People don't value art to their own detriment. Because, yeah, you can clap for that. I just thought of that too, so you can definitely clap for that. Because when you really think about it, the only reason we know about, or we care so much about ancient Greece and at the cradle of civilization is because of the sculptures and the poetry and the plays. Their currency is not worth anything. What they considered, whatever rock or paper they held up, it's not worth anything. But the art is worth something. You know, when people become billionaires, they go and buy art. It's the only thing that doesn't decrease in value. And so the system that we participate in, particularly nowadays, where you have the biggest billionaires in the world are the people who own, you know, Amazon and stuff like that, and Uber and things that don't even do anything besides connect other people who are actually doing stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, all they're doing is playing middleman. You get in an argument with a Lyft driver, you call Lyft, they be like, hey, just don't use that driver no more. I don't know what to tell you, you know? Amazon, they don't have a store per se. They have other warehouses. They're not even, you know, they're getting paid on other people's labor. And even with Spotify, we happily give our money to Spotify and Tidal and these places. We give them $10 a month or $15 a month. I don't know how much it is. Because we want these compressed MP3s. We want the convenience of having everything now. Every song right now, we need everything right now. But it's not really worth anything. We try to get on these blogs online. And without us, the blogs have nothing. We have all the value. They have no value. So we spend all our time trying to figure out how to be down with them and how to get with them. And I think we should spend more time investing in ourselves and moving away from that. Here I am, somebody who, look. I'm on Twitter probably more than anybody in this room, right? So it might seem hypocritical for me to tell y'all to spend less time online. But I don't use Twitter. You know, Twitter is not about my art. You know, what I do on Twitter is about something totally different than my art. That's why it's funny when people come in and say, it's not what you rap about. Well, you know, it's the same exact stuff I rap about, I just don't have no beat, you know. But yeah, I think that working on being honest with ourselves as artists, you're a spoken word artist, is the only thing you need to focus on. What people are gonna value with you is you showing up in the flesh. That's just, you know, I'm someone who's toured the world for 20 years. You know, I get paid to show up in the flesh. Just show up in the flesh and be the best you can be. No one else can be you better than you, and that's your biggest commodity. They will come to you, I think is what I'm trying to say.
All right, so we had time for only 3 per aisle, so I think that was the last one on this aisle, and this is the last one on this aisle. So after that, you all, Talib's gonna be around for a little bit, come up to the front stage, and we can have more of a conversation. But our panel's starting in about 10 minutes, so we need to really get going, okay? Thank you.
Panel.
It's a pleasure to meet you.
Peace.
My kids went to Park Place Middle School. I live on Lafayette Avenue.
Okay.
Could you talk about in Kuru books, you talked about currency and things that were valuable. That was one of the gems of the Brooklyn community. Can you talk about how the bookstore added to who you are?
Yeah, Nkiru Books was the first black bookstore in Brooklyn. Started by Leothi Miller Owens. Yep. Started by Leothi Miller Owens. She was a teacher. She was the son of Adelaide Miller. She had passed away by the time I started working there. I used to work at Shakespeare and Company Books in the Village when I was going to New York University. And got fired. And I wanted to, and it's funny, I was just telling my parents here that, I don't know if I should tell this story now. I'm gonna skip some parts. I knew that I wanted to make music for a living. I knew that the path I was in college was not the right path for me. So I went and got a job in Nkiru and got an apartment on Classen Avenue in Brooklyn. And then I told my parents that I was quitting school. And I was like, I'm quitting school, but I got an apartment and I got a job. And in Kiru Books, man, I think, to be real, you could do I'd take the Pepsi challenge on this one. I think that I might have named more books in my raps than any rapper. And I think that comes from Nkiru. It comes from staring at those books and reading all those books. And that community that I talk about in Washington Square Park, that artistic community, I was also working at Nkiru around the same time I was going to Washington Square Park all the time. And just being in a community of academics, but not just academics like in college. I'm talking about 5%ers who was building on the streets, or Hebrew Israelites, or the Shrine of Ptah, or the Queen Afua community, or just all of them together, all this like black excellence that would all come together at Dance Africa, or the African Street Festival, or at Nkiru Books, or at A&B Books, or at Liberation Books, or at all these cultural hubs all over the city. I was happy to be a part of it, and it meant so much to me in my growth. Like, me and Mos Def became friends at Nkiru Books because he came to Nkiru and he saw what I was doing there with the poetry readings, and he liked it. And we started hanging out because he enjoyed hanging out at Nkiru Books. When we first got our first checks, Nkiru Books was suffering under the thumb of Amazon, and Barnes & Nobles and Borders was around at that time still, and they were getting these huge bailouts, if you will, from the government. That's why if you back in the day, you would go into Barnes & Nobles and like the new like Baby Moore Campbell book would come out, and Barnes & Nobles would have it for like 70% off the hardcover. And in Nkiru, we had to sell it full price, or else we're gonna lose money. And people would come in and be like, "Yo, why y'all got it for $30? I could go to Barnes & Nobles and get it for $12." And it's like, there's a lot of science behind that. But that's why it was important for me to learn about black business and be a part of a community of black businesses, from Nkiru to Forest Circle on the Square to Frank's Place to Brooklyn Moon Cafe to everybody who was around at that time that was creating space for art and showing us that we did not need to leave our communities to have goods and services. Oh, yeah. And you could find Nkiru Books online at qualityclub.com, and I'm still selling them books. I'm slinging them books.
Let's go. Let's go. One more time, bro.
Oh, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm going to use the bathroom.